Monster Hunter Stories 3 Twisted Reflection might be the most addictive RPG that I've played so far on the Nintendo Switch 2. I sat down to play it for a couple of hours, at least that's what I thought, and before I knew it, it was 3 in the morning. I was still hatching eggs, battling monsters, trying to level up, and build my Monstie team. I had to literally force myself to go to bed. A huge thank you to Capcom for providing an early review copy so I could bring you guys coverage ahead of launch. So today we're going to break down the story setup, spoiler free, the gameplay systems, how it performs on Nintendo Switch 2, and whether Monster Hunter Stories 3 deserves a spot in your library. So let's start with the world and presentation. Monster Hunter Stories 3 opens with the discovery of a mysterious egg that hatches into twin Rathalos, an omen tied to a devastating conflict from centuries ago. You play as the heir to the kingdom of Azuria and leader of the Rangers, a group tasked with protecting monsters while investigating the strange environmental phenomena threatening the world. Without going too far into the story itself, the game does a great job building a sense of mystery early on. There are plenty of cinematic cutscenes to set the story up, strong character introductions, and a narrative that becomes clearer as you progress through the early chapters. Visually, the game leans heavily into a cel-shaded anime watercolor style, and honestly, I love it. The colors reminded me of opening one of those giant 500 crayon Crayola boxes that we had as kids, the massive ones with every color imaginable, and it feels like they used all of them. The environments are vibrant, the monsters are expressive, and the overall art direction really works well for this type of RPG. Performance-wise, the resolution is 720p in handheld mode and 1080p docked, which is on the lower end compared to some Switch 2 titles. However, the art style helps it hold up really well. So while it may not be as sharp, the art style looks great in handheld. The soundtrack also deserves a shout out. The main theme has that heroic Monster Hunter feel, and throughout the game, the music shifts between adventurous exploration tracks and more intense battle themes. Combined with excellent voice acting and environmental sound design, the presentation really pulls you into this world. Alright, let's jump into the gameplay because this is where Monster Hunter Stories really stands apart. At its core, this is a monster taming RPG. You'll explore regions, search monster dens for eggs, hatch new monsties, and build a team that fights alongside you in turn-based battles. But the combat system adds a lot of strategic layers. Battles revolve around a rock, paper, scissors style system where speed beats power, power beats technical, and technical beats speed. When you and a monster target each other directly, you enter into a head-to-head encounter. Winning those exchanges deals heavy damage and charges your kinship gauge. If both you and your Monstie choose the correct attack type while targeting the same enemy, you'll trigger a double attack, which not only deals massive damage, but also cancels the monster's attack entirely. You're also managing stamina, weapon skills, and your Monstie's abilities during combat. And once the kinship gauge fills up, you can unleash powerful kinship skills, which are basically cinematic finishing moves that feel a bit like summon attacks from Final Fantasy. Outside of battle, exploration is heavily tied to your Monsties. Different Monsties have unique field abilities. Some can climb walls, others can swim, roar to scare off enemies, or break obstacles. The first comparison that I thought of when I was doing this was actually Donkey Kong Country. And if you remember how DK, you could ride different animals that had unique abilities. It's a similar idea here, but obviously expanded into a much larger RPG system. Switching Monsties on the fly becomes a very important part of both exploration, combat strategy, how you build your team, and it adds a lot of variety to how you approach the world. Now let's talk about how the game performs on Nintendo Switch 2. Monster Hunter Stories 3 runs with an uncapped frame rate that typically lands somewhere between 30 and 40 frames per second during gameplay, while menus run smoothly at around 60 FPS. Load times are also quite fast. Fast travel between caravan stands takes roughly 5 seconds, which makes moving around the world feel quick and convenient. The game also makes really good use of HD Rumble 2, adding subtle features feedback during exploration and combat that helps make battles feel more impactful. I played the game about half docked and half handheld, and both experiences were excellent. In fact, this might be one of those perfect Switch RPGs where you chip away at quests in handheld mode and then jump back into longer sessions on the TV. One night last week, I was playing in bed while Michaela was playing the new Fallout 4 on her Switch 2 next to me. She went to sleep around midnight, and I kept playing until 3 in the morning and had to force myself to go to bed so I could get up tomorrow and start all over again and work on this review. That's how addictive this game is. Next up, let's talk pacing and challenge. Monster Hunter Stories 3 does a really nice job gradually introducing its systems and onboarding you. Early battles act as a learning phase while you get comfortable with the head-to-head mechanics, monster behaviors, and weapon types. But as the game progresses, the strategy ramps up quite a bit. Monsters can transform mid-battle, change attack patterns when enraged, and even introduce mechanics like breakable body parts or special abilities that require specific tactics. You're also graded after battles based on performance, earning higher ranks for efficient victories and strategic play. It's a simple system, but it adds a really nice incentive to master the combat mechanics because your rating's tied to how much currency you get for each battle. When it comes to content, there is a lot to do here, guys. The main story alone can run anywhere from 30 to 50 hours depending on how much side content you pursue and of course how much leveling you want to do. And look, 30 to 50 hours I feel like is kind of on the low end because I spent probably that much time just kind of doing side quests and leveling. And speaking of side content, the game includes an impressive amount of it. Side stories are actually tied to your party members and help develop their character arcs rather than just being simple NPC fetch quests. You'll also spend time exploring monster dens, collecting eggs, crafting equipment at the smithy, and expanding your Monstie roster. In total, there are 81 different species available as rideable Monsties, including everything from bird wyverns to leviathans and even elder dragons. New systems like habitat restoration also add a very interesting twist, allowing you to release monsters back into the wild to rebuild ecosystems and unlock stronger monster variants of that type. And if you enjoy character customization or min-maxing builds, the Rite of Channeling system lets you transfer genes between Monsties to create unique skill combinations and powerful bonuses. So that was something that I really enjoyed about this game. There's a lot of depth here for players who enjoy experimenting with builds and optimizing their team. And one thing that's nice is that if you transfer genes to another Monstie, you can transfer them back too. Nothing is permanent, and it doesn't cost you any in-game currency to do this. So essentially, you're not going to get penalized for experimenting. For me, the biggest strength of Monster Hunter Stories 3 is the gameplay loop. It is one of those RPGs where there's always something pulling you back in. Maybe you're searching for a rare egg. Maybe you're upgrading a weapon at the smithy and you need a certain type of material. Maybe you're tweaking your Monstie's gene setup to trigger better bingo bonuses. Whatever it is, the game constantly gives you another goal to chase, and at no point did I feel like it was overwhelming. And because the systems are layered together, combat strategy, exploration abilities, monster collecting, and gear crafting, the experience stays engaging even after several dozens of hours. Looking at the bigger picture, Monster Hunter Stories 3 continues to expand what this spin-off series can be. The original Stories games already blended Monster Hunter mechanics with monster taming RPG systems, but this entry pushes things further with deeper combat mechanics, more narrative focus, and a much larger world to explore. In many ways, it feels like Capcom is positioning this series as a full-scale RPG alongside the main Monster Hunter titles rather than just a side experiment, and honestly, it works. Alright friends, now it's time for my final thoughts. After finishing Monster Hunter Stories 3, what stands out most is just how deep and addictive the gameplay loop is. Between the strategic combat, monster collecting, exploration mechanics, and customization systems, there's always something new to chase. And even though the gameplay structure shares similarities with monster taming RPGs like Pokemon or Dragon Quest Monsters, Monster Hunter Stories sets itself apart by letting you actively fight alongside your monsties rather than simply commanding them from the sidelines. The result is a system that feels both strategic and engaging. So yes, Monster Hunter Stories 3 Twisted Reflection absolutely earns the full Thunderstruck recommendation. If you enjoy monster collecting RPGs, turn-based strategy combats, or the world of Monster Hunter, this is a fantastic adventure that can easily keep you busy for several dozens of hours, and this is a great jumping in point. You don't have to play Monster Hunter Stories 1 and 2 to understand Part 3. And before we wrap things up, if you enjoy Nintendo discussions and gaming industry topics, make sure to check out the Nintendo Bite podcast, which I co-host live right here on the channel every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time with Nintendo Prime, Gamebird Classic, and Eric Moore. We cover all things Nintendo Switch 1, Switch 2, games, news, rumors, leaks, Nintendo Directs, you name it, and we have on new and reoccurring industry guests every week. So come hang out with us live, be part of the show. It's always a great time. And if you enjoyed this review, please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments, are you planning to pick up Monster Hunter Stories 3? And as always, remember, you're never too old to play video games.